Good morning, foxes. I hope you're all okay. We need to finish the chapter we were halfway through where Vola was giving Peter something to eat and she agreed to help him as long as he met her 3 conditions. I have more than everything I need, Vola sat. I have peace here. Because it's so quiet? No, because I'm exactly where I should be, doing exactly what I should be doing. This is peace. Eat. Peter bit into his sandwich. The cheese was hot and runny all the way through, the bread fried crisp and brown. He broke off a corner out of force of habit and was about to reach down to it when he remembered there was no fox under the table. He wondered if Pax was missing him as much as he missed his fox right now. Don't you get lonely out here? I see people. B. Booker, the librarian, Robert Johnson, bus driver. I see people. She got up, brought the frying pan over and slid another sandwich onto his plate. Eat. Peter ate, thinking about what she'd said about peace. When he finished, he licked the buttery crumbs from his fingers. What do you mean you're doing exactly what you should be doing? Do you work? Of course I work. The garden is 1/2 acre and the orchard is twice that size. I'm planting beans and okra today. Maybe get to replacing the seal on the well pump. There's always plenty to do here. But you don't go to a job, make any money. How do you buy things like all those tools in the barn, he waved around the cabin, like all your stuff? Vola hoisted herself onto the counter and then held out her wooden leg and wrapped it with a spatula. My country pays me a little blood money every month in exchange for my leg. She dropped the spatula into the sink and shook her head. A day woman deal. Turns out my leg wasn't all that valuable to them. Wish they'd told me before they sent me scouting in a minefield because I liked my leg. It was a good leg, not much to look at maybe, but it worked fine. It ran me clear into the next town and Deirdre Callan and I set fire to her father's woodshed in 6th grade and it kicked a smile off Henry Valentine's face when he tried to grab my butt the next year. I could go on. A leg is a very big price to pay. Every day, every single day, I wish I had it back. How come you don't get one that's more? The woman stuck her leg out again and tugged up her cuff to access the wooden post. Oh, they gave me a prosthetic, a complicated piece of work. Scared the devil out of me whenever I looked down, so I made my own. It's heavy and it's clumsy, but I did some terrible things in the war. I figure I deserve to drag something around. You threw it away? A prosthetic leg? You just threw it away? Peter couldn't help imagining the shocked look on some bin man's face. Of course not. I wear it sometimes. Right now it's in the garden, on the scarecrow. Scares the devil out of the crows too, apparently. She dropped off the counter and jammed a battered straw hat onto her head as if she'd suddenly remembered the garden of hers. I'll be back before dark. The outhouse is just beyond the 2 cedars and there's a tub in the kitchen. Clean up. The porch is yours. Actually, you'll have to share it with Francois. Keep that leg elevated. Who's Francois? Again, Vola shot back a bark of laugh that startled Peter. She tipped her head toward the back door, which led out to a screened porch. He's probably out there napping right now, lazy old thief. She crossed the door, looked out, then nodded. Come see. Peter levered himself off the chair and onto the crutches. Vola held the door open and waved toward a wooden bin. Peter saw a pair of dark ringed eyes peering out. He cocked his head to get a better view, and the raccoon cocked his head back. Francois Villon, named after one of the most famous thieves in history. The original was a poet as well as a thief, and such a charmer that every time they arrested him, some admirer pardoned him. Peter grinned. He crouched to get a better look. Hey, Chuck, 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 he called softly, the way he always greeted Pax in the morning. The raccoon eyed him lazily for another moment, then seemed to decide he wasn't interesting and flopped over and closed his eyes. Is he wild or tame? Vola waved the words off as if they were gnats. I leave the porch door open, he visits when he wants to, and he's fine company. I feed him, but I don't have to. He stays fat enough on his own. We've come to a little agreement about the chicken coop. He leaves the girls alone, and I scramble him up an egg now and then. He's a companion, that's the best word. She pointed to a beam spanning the ceiling. Tomorrow you can do some pull-ups, but today stay off that leg and keep it elevated. Above your heart is best. She nodded to the refrigerator. Keep icing it on and off. I want the swelling down some so I can get that bone tonight. Mix a spoonful of willow bark in water every few hours for the pain. Peter nodded, then dropped into a hammock hanging from the beams, exhausted. Vola started to leave, but paused in the doorway and turned round to study him. She crossed her arms over her chest, an unreadable expression on her face. What? Just wondering, she said. You staying out here on the porch. What do you suppose that makes you? Wild or tame? Okay, so we're on chapter 13, which is back to the foxes. When Pax awoke, it was late afternoon. The ache that had cramped his belly the past few days was worse, and when he tried to rise, he lost his balance for a second, his muscles trembling. He surveyed them for injury with a distant curiosity. Once, when he'd been ill, his boy had forced a pill down his throat. Afterward, his senses had been dulled and his reaction slowed. He felt the same way now. He dropped to the cool dirt and watched as below Grey and his mate emerged from their rests to scent the air, relieve themselves, and then set off for food. Bristle sprang out from a den beside him, stopped only to order her brother to stay behind, then trotted off to hunt also. On the day he'd gotten into the car with his boy, Pax had sensed the tension and refused his morning kibble, so it had now been 3 full days since he'd eaten. Although Pax had never seen death, he understood what awaited him if he did not find food. This thought produced no sense of urgency and drifted away. A second thought, however, that he must find his boy and see him safe, stirred him to rise again, first bracing himself on his 4 legs before straightening his haunches. After a moment, his head cleared. He wandered past the dens Bristle and Runt shared. Then he smelled caches of game buried in the soft earth, but they were all marked with powerful warning scents, so he did not dig them up. Farther out, a few gnawed-over carcasses were discarded, to be scoured clean by low-ranking scavengers. Pax began to poke through the carrion. Only the tail end of a marsh rat held any meat at all. Too rancid and gristly even for the crows, it was crawling with maggots. Pax lowered his head to the remains. He opened his jaw, but the smell sent him reeling back. This was not food. He staggered back a few steps and buried his muzzle in a patch of new clover, chewing the sprouts to cleanse the foul odour from his sensitive nasal passages. He swallowed and then began to feed tentatively. The act of eating was a comfort to his shrunken belly, although a false one. The clover wouldn't strengthen him. After a few mouthfuls, the clear thought arose again. He must find his boy. Just then he heard something tear through the grass before his sluggish senses could respond. He felt a solid weight plough into him. Runt pounced on top of Pax, crowing at his successful ambush. When Pax didn't move to shake him off, Runt began to examine him. Pax lay still while the smaller fox sniffed and licked him, too weak to waste energy batting him away. Unwell? Pax closed his eyes against the low-glancing sunlight and did not respond. Runt bounded off and came back a few minutes later with a worm hanging from his jaw. He dropped it at Pax's paws. Pax shrunk away, but the thoughts he'd had earlier surfaced again. He had to find his boy. He could avoid death if he ate. Pax picked up the worm and bit into it. Oh, look, I've got some beautiful pictures. I assume that's Pax and Runt there. Unused to the taste of live flesh, Pax retched and twisted away. Runt dug up another worm and dropped it in front of Pax, and this time Pax got to his feet and took a few steps before sinking back down. Runt followed and nudged him. Eat! Pax mustered as much dominance as he could. Leave! The younger fox gazed at the older one for a moment, then turned and trotted into the grass. Relieved, Pax laid his head on his paws. He did not have the energy for resistance now, but Runt reappeared after a few moments. Something round his mouth. He dropped his gift, and it broke open. Egg! The scent called up a sharp memory. Once, when he was very young, Pax had found a hard white orb while exploring his human's kitchen counter. He'd batted at it, thinking it was one of his boy's playthings. It had rolled onto the floor and cracked open, spilling its delicious secret. Peter's father had come in while he was still licking at the last drops and smacked him away. His flank had stung from the blow, but the egg had been so worth it. Since then, Pax managed an exploratory visit to the kitchen counter every time he was left alone, looking for more of them. A few times he'd gotten lucky. The quail egg Runt had brought was smaller, its speckled shell flecked with dried grass, and it smelled gamier than the ones his humans ate, but there was no mistaking it. Egg. Pax rose. Runt backed away to allow Pax to lap up the yoked prize. He licked the grass clean of every drop, then looked up, eager to express his gratitude. Runt was gone, but in a few moments he came back, 2 more eggs held carefully in his mouth. Pax devoured them. Runt left and returned, twice more. Pax ate steadily, until finally, 7 eggs swelling, his shrunken belly taut, he dropped to the sandy apron in front of the dens and closed his eyes. Runt leapt onto the gnarled root above the dens. He drew himself up to his full height, and while Pax slept, the ragged little Runt kept watch. Oh, bless Runt. And I think Peter and Pax are feeling very, very similar feelings, because they're both struggling to eat without each other, because they both miss each other so much. A bit like us guys, we're all missing each other too. So it's half term next week, so that means you've got a whole week off of work, and then there's a possibility that you will be seeing us in school on the 1st of June. But whatever happens, make sure you stay safe, and I hope to see you soon.